The clock on the wall showed 6:47 p.m. Elena wiped down another table, her cloth moving in small circles across the expensive wood. She'd been doing this for 4 hours straight, and her feet were starting to hurt. The Belmont Country Club was packed tonight, like it always was on Friday evenings. Rich people laughed over their wine glasses. The sound of clinking silverware filled the air. "Miss, could we get more bread?" A woman in a pearl necklace called out. Elena nodded with a practiced smile. "Of course, right away." She walked toward the kitchen, her black uniform blending in with the other servers. That was the thing about working here. You became invisible. These people, with their designer watches and their talk of vacation homes, they looked right through you. To them, she was just the girl who brought the food. But Elena didn't mind too much. The job paid her bills. Well, most of them anyway. Her small apartment across town cost $800 a month. Then there were the groceries, the bus fare, and the big one, her grandmother's medication. That alone ate up nearly half her paycheck. She grabbed the bread basket from the kitchen and headed back out. As she walked past the main lounge, something caught her eye. The piano. It sat there like it always did, gleaming under the soft lights. A beautiful baby grand, probably worth more than she'd make in 5 years. Maybe 10. Nobody here even played it. She'd worked at Belmont for 2 years now, and she'd only seen someone touch those keys maybe 3 times. It was just decoration to these people, something pretty to look at. Elena felt that familiar ache in her chest, the one she got every time she saw a piano. "Excuse me, are you going to stand there all day?" A sharp voice cut through her thoughts. She turned to see Mr. Peterson, one of the regular members, staring at her impatiently. "The bread?" he said, pointing at his table. "Sorry, sir. Here you go." Elena placed the basket down and hurried away, her face warm with embarrassment. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. More tables, more orders, more smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes. By the time 10 p.m. rolled around, most of the guests had left. The last few stragglers were finishing their after-dinner drinks in the bar area. Elena started collecting dirty plates from the empty dining room. Her manager, Mr. Rodriguez, walked past with his clipboard. "Good work tonight, Elena. You can head out once you're done with this section." "Thanks, Mr. Rodriguez." She stacked the plates carefully, her mind already wandering. The bus home took 40 minutes. She'd get back around 11, heat up some leftovers, check on whether her grandmother had taken her evening pills. Then maybe, if she wasn't too tired, she'd watch something on her phone before bed. This was her life now. Simple, predictable, safe. It wasn't always like this. 10 years ago, Elena had been someone different. Someone with dreams that reached beyond serving tables. She'd been a pianist. Not just someone who played for fun, but a real pianist. The kind who won competitions. The kind who made audiences go quiet when her fingers touched the keys. She remembered her first big win. She was only 12 years old, playing in the state youth competition. Her father had driven her 3 hours to get there. She was so nervous she thought she might throw up. But then she sat down at that piano and everything else disappeared. Just her and the music. She won first place. Her father cried. Actually cried right there in front of everyone. "My daughter, the concert pianist," he'd said, hugging her so tight she could barely breathe. After that, more competitions followed. More wins. A full scholarship to the music conservatory. Her teacher said she had something special. Not just talent, but feeling. She played like someone who understood what the music was trying to say. Her future was planned out. 4 years at the conservatory, then maybe studying abroad. Concerts, recordings, a life filled with music. Then her father got sick. It happened fast. 1 month he was fine, driving her to rehearsals and sitting in the front row at every performance. The next month he was in the hospital. The doctors used words like aggressive and advanced stage. 3 months later he was gone. Everything fell apart after that. Her mother had to work 2 jobs just to keep the house. There was no money for the conservatory, scholarship or not. They still needed to eat, to pay bills, to survive. Elena's little brother was only 8. Someone had to help, so Elena made a choice. She gave up the scholarship. Got a job at a restaurant instead. Told herself it was just temporary, just until things got better. But things never really got better. They just became different. Her mother eventually remarried and moved to another state. Her brother grew up and went to college. And Elena? She was still here, carrying plates and pouring wine for people who would never know her name. She finished clearing the last table and took the dishes to the kitchen. The dishwasher Carlos was already cleaning up. "Long night?" he asked. "They're all long," Elena said with a tired smile. She grabbed her jacket from her locker and headed toward the exit. But as she passed the main lounge again, she stopped. The lights were dimmed now. The piano sat there in the quiet, waiting. Elena looked around. Everyone had left this section. Mr. Rodriguez was probably in his office doing paperwork. The bartender was busy closing up on the other side of the building. Her feet carried her toward the piano before her brain could argue. She'd done this a few times before, always late at night when nobody was around. Just a few minutes, just to remember what it felt like. She sat down on the bench. The leather was smooth and cool. Her fingers hovered over the keys, trembling slightly. It had been 3 weeks since she'd last done this. She tried not to come too often. It hurt too much. But tonight something pulled at her. Maybe it was the tiredness. Maybe it was seeing that pearl necklace woman and her easy, comfortable life. Maybe it was just Friday, and Fridays always made her think of her father. He'd loved Fridays. Elena took a breath and let her fingers fall. The first notes came out soft, almost hesitant. A piece by Chopin, one of her father's favorites. Her fingers remembered the patterns even after all these years. They moved across the keys like they were coming home. She closed her eyes and let the music flow. This was the only place she could still be herself. Not Elena the waitress. Not Elena who was always tired and worried about money. Just Elena, the girl who once had dreams big enough to fill concert halls. The music grew louder, more confident. She forgot where she was, forgot about the dirty tables and the aching feet. There was only this moment, these notes, this feeling of being completely alive. She didn't hear the footsteps in the hallway, didn't see the shadows of people stopping to listen, didn't notice anything at all except the music pouring out of her like water from a broken dam. For these few precious minutes, Elena was free, and she had no idea that her entire life was about to change. Elena's fingers danced across the keys, pulling out emotions she'd buried for years. The melody filled the empty lounge, echoing off the high ceilings. She was so lost in the music that she didn't hear the door open, didn't hear the whispered voices, didn't hear anything except the notes flowing from her soul. When the final chord faded into silence, she sat there for a moment, eyes still closed, letting the feeling wash over her. This was who she really was. This was the Elena that nobody got to see. Then she heard it. Clapping, her eyes snapped open. Her heart jumped into her throat. There, standing near the entrance to the lounge, were 7 or 8 people, all dressed in expensive clothes, all staring at her. One man was actually clapping, slow and steady. A woman next to him had her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide. Elena's face went hot. She stood up so fast the piano bench scraped against the floor. "I'm so sorry," she stammered. "I didn't know anyone was still here. I shouldn't have. Don't apologize." The man who'd been clapping stepped forward. He was maybe 40, Asian features, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her car. That was incredible. "How long have you been playing?" Elena's mind was racing. She was going to get fired. She'd touched the piano. She wasn't supposed to touch anything that wasn't part of her job. Mr. Rodriguez was going to be so angry. I've played since I was a child," she managed to say. "But I really should go. I'm sorry for disturbing you." "Disturbing us?" A woman laughed. She was older, maybe 60, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant twist. "Dear, you just gave us a private concert. I'm Victoria Ashford. I run the Cultural Foundation downtown." The name meant nothing to Elena. She just wanted to leave before this got worse. "That piece you played," another man spoke up. He had a notebook in his hand. "Chopin's Ballade No. 1, right? But you added something. Those variations in the middle section, I've never heard them played that way." Elena nodded, still frozen near the piano. Sometimes I improvise a little. I know I'm not supposed to change the classics, but..." "Not supposed to?" The man looked amazed. "That's exactly what you're supposed to do. Music isn't dead notes on a page. It's alive. You made it alive." "James, stop interrogating the poor girl," Victoria said gently. She turned to Elena with kind eyes. "What's your name, dear?" Elena Martinez." "Well, Elena Martinez, do you perform anywhere?" "Give concerts?" The question felt like a knife. Elena shook her head. "No, ma'am. I work here." "I'm a server. She works here?" A younger woman in the group looked shocked. But the way you play, you must have studied at a conservatory. I had a scholarship once, Elena heard herself say. But I couldn't go. Family circumstances, James, the man with the notebook, exchanged a look with Victoria. Something passed between them. Elena didn't understand what, but it made her nervous. Listen, James said, pulling a card from his jacket pocket. I'm a music producer. I work with talented artists, help them record albums, book performances. I'd love to talk to you about your music. Would you be willing to meet for coffee? Elena stared at the card like it might bite her. I don't understand. You have a gift, Victoria said simply. A real gift. People like James and me, we spend our lives looking for genuine talent. And here you are playing Chopin in an empty country club after your shift ends. But I'm nobody, Elena said quietly. I'm just a waitress who used to play piano. No, James's voice was firm. You're a pianist who happens to wait tables. There's a big difference. Before Elena could respond, she heard footsteps. Mr. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, looking concerned. Is everything all right here? I heard music and... He stopped when he saw Elena standing by the piano. His face changed. Elena, what are you doing? Mr. Rodriguez, I'm so sorry, She was playing for us, Victoria interrupted smoothly. We asked her to. I hope that's not a problem. Elena watched her boss's expression shift. He looked between Victoria Ashford, who was apparently important enough that he knew her name, and Elena, who was definitely not supposed to be touching the piano. Of course not, Mrs. Ashford, he said carefully. As long as our guests are happy. Very happy, James added. In fact, I was just giving Elena my card. I'd like to discuss a potential opportunity with her. Mr. Rodriguez nodded, but Elena could see the confusion in his eyes. After the group started to leave, heading back to the bar area, he pulled Elena aside. What was that about? He asked quietly. I don't really know, Elena admitted. I was playing the piano after my shift and they heard me. That man James, he says he's a music producer. Mr. Rodriguez looked at the business card in her hand. His eyebrows went up. James Chen? Elena, do you know who that is? She shook her head. He's discovered some of the biggest names in classical crossover music. People who've played at Carnegie Hall. If he's interested in you. He trailed off, seeming almost as shocked as she felt. Elena looked down at the card. It felt heavy in her hand, like it weighed more than it should. It doesn't matter. I have a job. I have responsibilities. I can't just... This isn't real life. Maybe it could be, Mr. Rodriguez said softly. Then he seemed to catch himself. Anyway, you should get home. It's late. And Elena? Maybe don't mention the piano playing to anyone else. Just in case. She nodded and grabbed her things. As she walked to the bus stop, her mind was spinning. The night air was cool and the streets were quiet. She kept pulling out the card, reading it under the streetlights. James Chen, music producer. There was a phone number and an email address. The bus arrived nearly empty at this hour. Elena sat in her usual seat near the back. She should throw the card away. This was crazy. People like her didn't get discovered. That only happened in movies. But she couldn't stop thinking about the way it felt to play tonight. Really play, not just stolen moments of sadness. She'd played for an audience again, even if it was by accident. And they'd listened. Really listened. Her phone buzzed. A text from her grandmother. Mija, are you on your way home? I saved you some dinner. Elena smiled and texted back that she'd be there soon. Her grandmother, Abuela Rosa, was the only family she had left in the city. The medication for her heart condition cost $300 a month, even with insurance. Elena never told her how hard it was to afford. When she got to the apartment, Abuela Rosa was still awake watching her telenovela. Long day? The older woman asked. Yeah, Elena said, kissing her grandmother's cheek. But something weird happened. She told her about the piano, the audience, the business card. Abuela Rosa listened quietly, her wise old eyes studying Elena's face. And what are you going to do? She asked when Elena finished. Nothing. I can't. We need my job, Abuela. We need the insurance. Her grandmother was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took Elena's hand. You know what I regret most in my life? Elena shook her head, playing it safe. Abuela Rosa said softly, always choosing the sure thing. The safe thing. And now I'm old and I wonder what might have been. She squeezed Elena's hand. Don't be like me, mija. Don't spend your life wondering. That night, Elena lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The business card sat on her nightstand, glowing in the dark like it had its own light. She thought about her father, about the way he'd cried when she won that first competition, about all the dreams they'd had together. Maybe Abuela Rosa was right. Maybe some chances only came once, but wanting something and actually reaching for it were two very different things. Elena closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come easy. Her fingers moved on the blanket, playing invisible keys, creating music only she could hear. Elena stared at her phone for the 100th time that morning. The email was still there, sitting in her inbox like a ticking bomb. Dear Elena, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to follow up on our conversation at the Belmont Club. I have a proposal that I think could change your life. Would you be available to meet this Thursday at 2 p.m.? There's a quiet cafe on Maple Street called The Daily Grind. Please let me know. Best regards, James Chen. That was 3 days ago. She still hadn't replied. You're going to wear a hole in that phone, her coworker Lisa said, wiping down the bar. It was a slow Tuesday afternoon at the club. Only a few members were having lunch. Sorry, Elena mumbled, putting the phone away. Is it a guy? Lisa grinned. You've been distracted all week. It's not like that. Elena picked up a tray. It's complicated. Everything's complicated when you overthink it. Lisa shrugged. Sometimes you just gotta jump. Easy for her to say. Lisa was 22, lived with 3 roommates, and didn't have anyone depending on her. She could jump all she wanted. Elena's phone buzzed again. This time it was a different email. From Victoria Ashford. Elena, James told me he reached out but hasn't heard back. I understand this must feel overwhelming. I'd like to share something with you. My foundation helps talented artists who face financial barriers. We don't just throw opportunities at people and hope they figure it out. We provide support, resources, and yes, financial assistance if needed. You have something special. Please don't let fear stop you from exploring what's possible. You can reach me anytime. Elena's hands shook slightly. Financial assistance. They were talking about money. Real help. But what if it was too good to be true? What if she met them and they realized she wasn't as good as they thought? What if she got her hopes up and everything fell apart again? She made it through her shift on autopilot. Smiled at the right times. Brought food. Cleared plates. But her mind was somewhere else entirely. When she got home that evening, Abuela Rosa was sitting at the small kitchen table, sorting through bills. The sight made Elena's stomach tight. The electric bill. The rent notice. The pharmacy receipt. Abuela, I told you I'd handle those, Elena said, setting down her bag. I know, mija. I just like to see where we stand. Her grandmother looked up with tired eyes. The pharmacy called today. They said my prescription is ready, but the price went up again. It's $340 now. Elena felt something crack inside her chest. $40 more. $40 they didn't have. Don't worry about it, she said, trying to sound confident. I'll pick it up tomorrow. Elena. Abuela Rosa's voice was gentle but firm. You work so hard. Too hard for someone your age. When do you get to live your life? I am living my life. No. Her grandmother shook her head. You're surviving. That's different. Elena sat down across from her. Abuela, I can't take risks right now. What if I meet these people and it goes nowhere? What if I quit my job and then everything falls apart? And what if it doesn't fall apart? Abuela Rosa reached across and took her hand. What if it's exactly what you need? But your medicine... I'm old, Elena. I've lived my life. You're 28 years old and you're living like you're already done, like there's nothing left to dream about. Her grandmother's eyes filled with tears. Your father wouldn't want this for you. The mention of her father hit hard. Elena looked away. He saved for years for your music lessons, Abuela Rosa continued. He believed in you so much. And I know you gave it all up when he died. I know you did it for the family. But baby, the family doesn't need you to sacrifice everything. We need you to be happy. Elena wiped her eyes. I don't even know if I'm still good enough. It's been 10 years since I really played. Those people at the club didn't seem to think 10 years mattered. That night, Elena lay in bed thinking about her father. She remembered the day she got accepted to the conservatory. He'd picked her up and spun her around, laughing like a kid. He was so proud. She picked up her phone and before she could change her mind, typed out a reply to James. Hi, James. Thank you for reaching out. I'm sorry for the delay. I can meet on Thursday at 2 p.m., Elena. She hit send before the fear could stop her. Thursday came too fast. Elena stood outside the daily grind at 1:55, her palms sweating. She'd worn her nicest dress, a simple blue one she usually saved for job interviews she never went to. Through the window, she could see James already sitting at a corner table. Next to him was Victoria. They'd both come. Elena almost turned around and left. But then Victoria looked up and saw her. The older woman smiled and waved. No backing out now. The cafe smelled like coffee and fresh bread. Soft music played in the background. James stood up when she approached. "Elena, thank you so much for coming." He pulled out a chair for her. "Can we get you something? Coffee? Tea? Just water is fine," she said quietly. Victoria studied her with kind eyes. "You look nervous." "I am," Elena admitted. "I don't really understand why you want to meet with me." James leaned forward. "Because in my 15 years of working in music, I've heard thousands of pianists. Technically perfect players who make me feel nothing. And then once in a very long while, I hear someone who makes me forget where I am. You did that last Friday. I was just playing something I learned years ago." "No," Victoria said gently. "You were telling a story. Every note meant something. That's not something you can teach. Either you have it or you don't." James pulled out a folder. "I want to be straight with you about what I'm proposing. I'd like to record you. Not a full album right away, just a few pieces. We'd put them online, see how people respond. If it goes well, we could look at small venue performances. Maybe build towards something bigger." Elena's heart was pounding. "But I have a job. I work 5 days a week, sometimes 6. That's the thing," Victoria said. "For this to work, you'd need to commit. Real practice time, recording sessions, eventually performances. You can't do that while working full-time at the club." There it was. The impossible choice. "I can't quit my job," Elena said. "I have bills. My grandmother needs expensive medication. I barely make enough as it is." Victoria and James exchanged a glance. Then Victoria spoke. "My foundation has a program for exactly this situation. We provide a stipend for living expenses. It's not a fortune, but it would cover your rent, utilities, and your grandmother's medical costs for 1 year. That gives you time to see if this can work." Elena felt dizzy. "You just give me money?" "We'd invest in your talent," James corrected. "If you succeed, eventually you'd be able to support yourself through music. Our foundation has helped launch 12 careers in the past 5 years. Some made it big. Others found smaller but meaningful success. A couple decided music wasn't for them after all, and that's okay too. But they all got the chance to try." "What if I fail?" Elena whispered. "What if you don't?" Victoria smiled. "Look, Elena, I'm not going to lie to you. This is scary."
"Change is always scary."
"But staying stuck because you're afraid? That's scarier, at least to me." James pushed a paper across the table. "This is the stipend amount. This is what we'd cover. Take it home. Think about it. Talk to your grandmother. Talk to anyone you trust. You don't have to decide today." Elena looked at the numbers. Her hands trembled. It was enough. It was actually enough to live on. "How long do I have to decide?" she asked. "Take a week," Victoria said. "But Elena, I want you to know something. I saw my daughter give up on her dreams because they seemed too risky. She's fine now, has a good job, a nice life. But sometimes I see her looking at dancers on TV, and I see regret in her eyes. Don't be her. Don't spend your life wondering what if." Elena left the cafe in a daze. The paper felt like it was burning in her purse. A year. They were offering her a full year to chase a dream she thought died with her father. On the bus ride home, she pulled out her phone and looked at an old photo. Her father standing next to her at that first competition. Both of them grinning like they'd won the lottery. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop playing it safe. Maybe it was time to jump. Elena sat on the bus, staring at the paper in her hands. The numbers blurred as tears filled her eyes. She wiped them away quickly, not wanting the other passengers to see. When she got home, Abuela Rosa was in the living room folding laundry. She took one look at Elena's face and put down the towel she was holding. "Sit down, mija. Tell me everything," Elena did. She told her about James and Victoria, about the stipend, about the whole crazy offer. Her grandmother listened without interrupting, her weathered hands folded in her lap. "So they want you to quit your job," Abuela Rosa said when Elena finished. "For a year, to see if I can actually make it as a musician." Elena laughed, but it sounded hollow. "It's insane, right? I haven't seriously played in 10 years. You played last Friday. That was different. That was just emotion. It wasn't real. Abuela Rosa stood up slowly, her knees creaking. She walked to the small closet in the hallway and pulled out an old shoebox from the top shelf. Elena had seen it before but never really paid attention to it. Her grandmother sat back down and opened the box. Inside were old photographs, yellowed newspaper clippings, and a faded blue ribbon. "I never told you this story," Abuela Rosa said softly. "When I was 19, I loved to dance. Not just for fun, but really dance. Ballet, contemporary, everything. I was good too." She pulled out a photograph, a young woman in a flowing dress frozen mid-leap. Elena barely recognized her grandmother in that graceful figure. A dance company came through town. They were touring Mexico, looking for new talent. They saw me perform at a local show and offered me a spot. 6 months touring, with a chance to join them permanently if it worked out. Elena stared at the photo. "I never knew you danced, because I didn't go." Abuela Rosa's voice was quiet. "My mother was sick. My father worked in the fields. My younger siblings needed me. So I said no. I told myself it was the responsible thing to do. The right thing." She pulled out a newspaper clipping, a review of the dance company's performance in Mexico City. "I followed them in the papers, watched them become famous. And every single day I wondered what my life would have been like if I'd been brave enough to go. But Abuela, you had responsibilities. Your family needed you. My family would have managed." The old woman's eyes were wet now. They would have been fine. "But I was scared, Elena. Scared of failing. Scared of disappointing people. So I stayed safe." She put the clipping back in the box. "I met your grandfather a year later. Had your mother. Built a good life. I'm not saying I regret everything. But that what if never goes away. It sits in your chest like a stone getting heavier every year." Elena felt her throat tighten. "What if I try and I'm not good enough? What if I embarrass myself?" "Then you'll know," Abuela Rosa said simply. "And you can move on without wondering." "But Elena, what if you are good enough? What if you're amazing? What if this is the chance your father always dreamed of for you?" That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about her grandmother as a young dancer, about all those years of wondering. She got out of bed and opened her laptop. She typed James Chen's name into the search bar. Pages of results came up. Articles about artists he'd discovered. Videos of performances. He wasn't lying. He really had launched careers. Real successful careers. She found an interview with him from 2 years ago. The interviewer asked what he looked for in an artist. "Technical skill is important," James had said, "but what I really listen for is truth. Can this person make me feel something I've never felt before? Can they take a piece that's been played 1,000,000 times and make it sound new? That's rare. That's special." Elena closed the laptop. Her fingers were shaking. The next morning, she went to work at the club. Everything looked the same. The same tables, the same rich people, the same routine, but it all felt different now, like she was watching it from far away. During her break, Lisa found her sitting outside on the back steps. "You okay?" "You've been weird all week." Elena took a breath. "Can I tell you something? But you have to promise not to think I'm crazy." "Girl, I already think you're a little crazy. You organize the sugar packets by color." Despite everything, Elena smiled. Then she told Lisa the whole story. Lisa's eyes got wider and wider. Wait. James Chen? The James Chen? And he wants to record you?" "Yeah. And they're offering you money to do it?" "For a year. To cover living expenses." Lisa grabbed Elena's shoulders. "And you're thinking about it?" "Elena, are you insane? This is literally a once-in-a-lifetime thing." "But what about my job? What about security?" "Security?" Lisa laughed. "Babe, you make $12 an hour plus tips. That's not security. That's survival. There's a difference. Easy for you to say. You're right, it is easy for me to say. You know why? Because I'm not the one with the talent. You are." Lisa's voice got serious. "Do you know how many people would kill for an opportunity like this? And you're going to turn it down because you're scared? I have my grandmother to think about." "Did you ask your grandmother what she thinks?" Elena thought about the shoebox. The faded photograph. The look in Abuela Rosa's eyes when she talked about dancing. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I did." That evening, Elena asked Mr. Rodriguez if she could talk to him. They sat in his small office, surrounded by filing cabinets and schedules. "I need to give you my 2 weeks' notice," she said, her heart hammering. Mr. Rodriguez leaned back in his chair. He didn't look surprised. This is about the music thing, isn't it? How did you know? Elena, I've managed this club for 15 years. I've seen a lot of staff come and go. Most of them, they're just passing through, getting by. But you? He shook his head. You always seemed like you were meant for something else. Like you were just waiting. I'm terrified, she admitted. Good. That means it matters. He pulled out a form from his drawer. You're one of the best workers I've ever had. Reliable, kind professional. But I'm glad you're leaving, Elena blinked. You are? Yeah, because you deserve better than this. Better than serving people who don't even see you. He slid the form across the desk. Fill this out. Your last day will be 2 weeks from Friday. And Elena? I want an autograph when you're famous, she laughed, tears spilling down her cheeks. I might not get famous, doesn't matter. At least you'll know you tried. Walking home that night, Elena felt like she was floating. She'd done it. She'd actually quit her job. The fear was still there, huge and overwhelming. But underneath it was something else. Something that felt almost like hope. She stopped at the small park near her apartment and sat on a bench. She pulled out her phone and typed an email to James and Victoria. I'm in. I want to do this. When do we start? She hit send before she could change her mind. Her phone rang almost immediately. It was James. Elena! I just got your email. Are you sure? No, she said honestly. I'm not sure at all. But I'm doing it anyway. She could hear the smile in his voice. That's the spirit. Okay, here's what happens next. Can you come to the studio on Monday? I want to hear you play properly. See what we're working with. And bring any sheet music you have, anything you love to play. I don't have much. I sold most of my music books years ago. That's fine. We'll figure it out. Elena, I know this is scary, but I promise you, we're going to take this one step at a time. No pressure. Just you and the music. When she got home, Abuela Rosa was waiting up for her. I quit my job, Elena said. Her grandmother stood up and wrapped her in a tight hug. She was crying. Your father would be so proud of you right now. I'm so scared, Abuela. I know, mija. I know. She pulled back and looked Elena in the eyes. But you're doing it anyway. That's what bravery is. Not being unafraid. But doing the thing that scares you because it matters more than the fear. That weekend, Elena went through her apartment, looking for anything related to music. She found an old folder tucked under her bed. Inside were some of her competition pieces from years ago, covered in her father's handwriting. Notes about tempo, dynamics, feeling. Remember, he'd written on one page. The music isn't in the notes. It's in the silence between them. It's in what you feel when you play. Elena traced the words with her finger. Monday morning came too fast. Elena stood outside the recording studio, her old folder clutched to her chest. This was it, the beginning of everything or the biggest mistake of her life. She thought about her father, about Abuela Rosa's shoebox, about all the years she'd spent being safe. Then she opened the door and walked inside. The studio was smaller than she'd expected. James was there with a sound engineer setting up equipment. But what caught Elena's attention was the piano. A beautiful grand piano waiting in the center of the room. Ready? James asked. Elena set down her folder. She walked to the piano and sat down. Her hands were shaking. What should I play? Whatever speaks to you right now. Whatever you're feeling. She closed her eyes and let her fingers find the keys. And then she played. Not perfectly. Not like she used to. But honestly. Truly. And for the first time in 10 years, Elena felt like herself again. 3 months passed like a dream Elena wasn't sure she wanted to wake up from. The first few weeks were the hardest. Her fingers ached from practicing 6 hours a day. Muscles she'd forgotten about screamed at her. Some mornings she woke up wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. But James was patient. He never pushed too hard. When she got frustrated, he'd make her stop and just talk about music. About what made her love it in the first place. You're thinking too much, he told her one afternoon when she kept messing up the same passage. Your fingers remember. You just have to trust them. Slowly, something started to change. The music that had felt rusty and forced began to flow again. Elena stopped trying to play perfectly and started playing honestly. The difference was everything. They recorded 5 pieces. James sent them to a few people in the industry. Then they waited. Elena tried not to check her email every 5 minutes. She failed. Then one morning, James called her. His voice was different, excited. We got a response. A good one. There's a small concert hall downtown, the Riverside Theater. They want you to perform. One night, opening for a more established artist, Elena's stomach dropped. Perform in front of people? That was always the plan, wasn't it? I thought we were just recording. Seeing what happened. Elena, your recordings have gotten over 50,000 plays online. People want to hear you live. 50,000. The number didn't feel real. I can't, she said. James, I haven't performed in front of an audience in 10 years. What if I freeze? What if I mess up? Then you mess up. It happens. But what if you don't? What if you're amazing? That phrase again. The same thing Abuela Rosa had asked. The concert was scheduled for 6 weeks out. Elena practiced until her fingers went numb. She practiced in the studio. She practiced at home on the old keyboard James had lent her. She even went back to the Belmont Club one night after hours and played the piano where this all started. Mr. Rodriguez found her there. Couldn't stay away. He asked with a smile. I wanted to remember, Elena said. This is where it began. Where they first heard me. You nervous about the concert? Terrified. He sat down on a nearby chair. You know what I remember? The night I heard you playing, I was in my office doing paperwork. I heard this music and thought someone left a recording on. But when I came out, it was you. And Elena, I've heard a lot of piano players in this club. Rich people pay for their kids to have the best teachers. But none of them ever made me stop what I was doing and just listen. You did. What if I'm not that good anymore? You were never that good, he said. Elena's face must have fallen because he laughed. I mean, you were always better than good. You were real. That's rarer. Victoria came to visit her a week before the concert. They sat in the small studio drinking coffee. How are you holding up? Victoria asked. I keep having this dream where I walk on stage and forget how to play. Just sit there staring at the piano while everyone watches. That's a very common anxiety dream, Victoria smiled. I had it before every dance recital when I was young. You danced? Badly, but I loved it. She set down her cup. Elena, I want to tell you something. When I started the foundation, people thought I was wasting my money. They said real talent doesn't need help. It finds its way naturally. But that's not true. Some of the most gifted people in the world never get a chance because they're too busy surviving, working 3 jobs, taking care of sick parents, just trying to get by. She looked at Elena directly. You have something special, not just talent, but perspective. You've lived. You've struggled. You've sacrificed. That comes through in your music. People can hear it. They can feel it. What if nobody shows up to the concert? There are already 300 tickets sold. The theater holds 400. Elena nearly spilled her coffee. 300 people? Your videos online, they resonated with people. There's something about your story. The waitress who never stopped being a pianist. It means something. The week before the concert, Abuela Rosa got sick. Nothing serious, just a bad cold. But Elena panicked. She wanted to cancel everything, stay home and take care of her grandmother. Absolutely not, Abuela Rosa said from her bed, her voice hoarse. You're not using me as an excuse to run away. I'm not running away. I'm being responsible. Mija, I have a cold. I'm not dying. You're performing in that concert. But what if you need something while I'm gone? Abuela Rosa gave her a long look. You know what I need? I need to see my granddaughter step onto that stage. I need to watch you do the thing you were born to do. That's what I need. Lisa, Elena's old co-worker, came to visit the day before the concert. She brought Elena's favorite takeout and made her eat. You've lost weight, Lisa said, watching Elena pick at her food. I've been too nervous to eat much. Well, that stops now. You need energy for tomorrow. Lisa pointed at the container. Eat. They sat on Elena's tiny balcony watching the sun set over the city. Do you ever regret it? Elena asked. Staying at the club? Not chasing something bigger? Lisa thought about it. Sometimes. But I'm also realistic. I'm good at my job, but I'm not special at it. You? You're special. That's different. I don't feel special. I feel like I'm pretending. That's called imposter syndrome. Every successful person has it, Lisa nudged her. Tomorrow you're going to walk onto that stage. And yeah, you'll be scared. But then you'll start playing. And you'll remember why you're doing this. The day of the concert arrived too fast. Elena stood backstage at the Riverside Theater, wearing a simple black dress Victoria had helped her pick out. She could hear the audience filing in, the murmur of voices, the rustling of programs. Her hands were ice cold. James appeared beside her. "How you doing? I think I might throw up. That's normal." Deep breaths. He put a hand on her shoulder. "Remember, these people are here because they want to hear you play. They're on your side. What if I disappoint them? Then you disappoint them. But Elena, you've already done the hard part. You showed up. You tried. Everything else is just music." Through a gap in the curtain, she could see the audience. The theater was almost full, and there in the third row, she spotted Abuela Rosa. Her grandmother was wearing her best dress, the pearl earrings Elena's father had given her. Next to her sat Lisa, and next to Lisa was Mr. Rodriguez. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. They'd all come. Her whole world was out there, watching. The stage manager gave her a signal. 2 minutes, Elena closed her eyes. She thought about her father, about the little girl who won her first competition, about the teenager who thought she'd play in concert halls around the world, about the woman who'd given up everything to keep her family afloat. All of those versions of herself had led to this moment. The lights dimmed. The audience quieted. Someone announced her name. Elena walked onto the stage. The spotlight was bright and warm. The piano waited for her, polished and perfect. She could feel 400 pairs of eyes watching her. Her heart hammered so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She sat down, adjusted the bench, placed her hands on the keys, and then she began to play. The first notes came out shaky, but then muscle memory took over. Her fingers found the patterns they'd played 1,000 times before. And something magical happened. She forgot about the audience, forgot about the pressure, forgot about everything except the music. She played the pieces she'd practiced, but they sounded different than they had in the studio. Better, fuller, like they'd been waiting for this moment to truly come alive. She played for her father, for Abuela Rosa, for the girl she used to be and the woman she'd become, for every lost dream and every new beginning. When the final note faded into silence, there was a moment of complete quiet. Then the applause began. It started as a rumble and built into something huge. People stood up. Elena looked out at the audience, tears streaming down her face. Abuela Rosa was crying too, clapping so hard it must have hurt her hands. Elena stood and bowed. The applause continued. She bowed again, overwhelmed. As she walked off stage, James was there, grinning like crazy. "You did it. You actually did it. I can't believe that just happened." "Believe it. You've got 3 encore requests and the main act wants to meet you." The rest of the night passed in a blur. People congratulated her. A music journalist asked for an interview. Someone from a classical music label gave her a card. But the moment that mattered most came later when she finally made it to the lobby. Abuela Rosa grabbed her and held on tight. "I'm so proud of you," her grandmother whispered. "So incredibly proud. I was so scared, I know, Mia. But you did it anyway." Months later, Elena would sign with a label. She'd record a full album. She'd play in bigger theaters. Some nights she'd perform for thousands of people. But none of it would ever feel quite as meaningful as that first concert. The night she proved to herself that dreams don't die. They just wait. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to reach for them again, they come back even more beautiful than before. Elena never did become the most famous pianist in the world, but she made a living doing what she loved. She played. She taught. She inspired. And every time she sat down at a piano, she thought about the girl serving drinks at a country club, playing in secret after everyone went home. That girl had been brave enough to try, and that had made all the difference.